Tuesday, November 4th, 2025, AGNDD intelliReport topic, Gunpowder Plot. Please pardon any visual and informational inaccuracies in this entirely AI-generated article-based video. England's religious turmoil. From Henry VIII's break with Rome, Catholic persecution under Elizabeth I, to James I's smooth succession in 1603. From 1532 to 1540, King Henry VIII seized control of the English Church from Rome, igniting decades of religious strife. English Catholics faced marginalization in a society led by the increasingly Protestant Church of England. Queen Elizabeth I, Henry's daughter, enacted the Elizabethan religious settlement, mandating oaths of allegiance to the monarch as supreme head of church and state for public or ecclesiastical office holders. Refusal led to harsh penalties, fines for recusancy, with repeat offenders facing imprisonment or execution. Catholicism dwindled, retreating to remote regions distant from London. Undeterred by threats of torture or death, Catholic priests secretly continued their ministry. Queen Elizabeth I, unmarried and childless, refused to name an heir, leading to rival claims. Catholics favored her executed cousin Mary, Queen of Scots, or alternatives like Philip II's daughter Isabella and cousin Arbella Stuart. Secretary Robert Cecil secretly negotiated with Mary's son James VI of Scotland, paving his way to the throne upon Elizabeth's death on March 24, 1603. Fearing unrest, authorities detained prominent Catholics and relocated Arbella. Yet the transition was smooth. Cecil proclaimed James king, met with widespread celebration including from papists and Jesuits. James ordered a ceasefire with Spain, receiving congratulations from its envoy. Unlike Elizabeth, James arrived with a family. Wife Anne of Denmark and children Henry IX, Elizabeth and Charles, securing a Protestant line of succession. James I of England adopted a more moderate stance toward Catholics than Elizabeth I, pledging not to persecute those who obeyed the law outwardly and favoring exile over execution. Hopes persisted among Catholics that his mother Mary, Queen of Scots' martyrdom, might lead him to convert, echoed by European Catholic houses. He engaged with envoys from Catholic territories amid the Dutch revolt and post-Spanish Armada tensions. Amid escalating European wars of religion, Catholics attempted assassinations of Protestant rulers, including plots against Elizabeth. The 1589 stabbing of Francis Henry III and Jesuit Juan de Mariana's 1599 defense of tyrannicide fueled English Catholic beliefs in justifiable regicide against tyrants. James's anxious political writings countered these threats, refuting Catholic arguments that faith need not be kept with heretics. In 1603, amid hopes for Catholic tolerance under King James I, the Plot by priests William Watson and William Clark aimed to kidnap him for concessions, while the main plot by nobles like Lord Cobham and Walter Raleigh sought to replace him with Arbella Stuart. Both were uncovered, Watson and Clark were executed, but James pardoned others to avoid a bloody start. Catholics, shocked and having aided in exposing the plots, gained temporary relief with pardons and fine postponements. However, after discovering a papal rosary sent to Queen Anne, James denounced Catholicism, expelled priests, and resumed recusancy fines, raising significant revenue. Shifting focus to Anglo-Scottish union, James appointed Scottish nobles, sparking parliamentary discontent. His 1604 speech emphasized religious unity without Catholic growth, intensifying persecution and leading to the Popish Recusants Act 1605, threatening to outlaw English Catholics. The Gunpowder Plot conspirators primarily aimed to assassinate King James I during the state opening of Parliament, which would also eliminate key figures including his relatives, Privy Council members, senior judges, Protestant aristocracy, Church of England bishops, as House of Lords members, and the House of Commons. A secondary goal was kidnapping the king's daughter, Elizabeth, from Combe Abbey near Coventry, just 10 miles north of Warwick, convenient for the Midlands-based plotters. Following the monarch's death, they planned to install Elizabeth as a titular queen, improvising the roles of her brothers, Henry and Charles. Henry Percy, 9th Earl of Northumberland, was intended as her regent, likely without his knowledge. Robert Catesby, 1573–1605, a charismatic Catholic of noble lineage, led the Gunpowder Plot after participating in the 1601 Essex Rebellion, where he was fined heavily. In 1603, he sent Thomas Wintour to Spain seeking invasion support for English Catholics, but King Philip III prioritized peace with James I. Undeterred, Catesby in 1604 recruited Wintour and swordsman John Wright to plot blowing up the House of Lords. Wintour enlisted Guy Fawkes, a skilled soldier from the Netherlands, and his brother Christopher Wright. Spanish aid proved unlikely. Thomas Percy, a serious Catholic convert and agent for the Earl of Northumberland, joined later. Percy had optimistically secured promises from James I for Catholic tolerance, including private masses, aiming to elevate Catholic prospects in England. On May 20, 1604, the initial gathering of the Gunpowder Plot conspirators occurred at the Duck and Drake Inn near the Strand in London, where Thomas Wintour often stayed. Present were Robert Catesby, Thomas Wintour, John Wright, Guy Fawkes, and Thomas Percy. In a private room, they swore a solemn oath of secrecy over a prayer book. Coincidentally, Jesuit priest John Gerard, a friend of Catesby's and unaware of the plot, was conducting Mass in an adjacent room. The five men then received the Eucharist from him, sealing their pact. Gunpowder Plot Summary, 1604–1605. Parliament's adjournment to February 1605 allowed conspirators to plan. Thomas Percy secured a London house near Parliament via his patron, the Earl of Northumberland. Guy Fawkes, alias John Johnson, managed it as Percy's servant. Due to occupants, gunpowder was stored in Lambeth lodgings and rowed across the Thames nightly. Anti-Catholic policies persisted under King James I. Plotters dispersed, reconvening in October 1604, adding Robert Keyes to guard supplies. Thomas Bates joined in December. Plague delayed Parliament to October 1605. Allegedly, they tunneled to the House of Lords but stopped upon discovering an empty undercroft for storage. By March 1605, Robert Wintour, John Grant, and Christopher Wright, devout Catholics with recusant ties and Essex revolt involvement, joined, bolstering the group. Summary of Gunpowder Plot preparations. In March 1605, Gunpowder Plot conspirators leased an undercroft beneath the House of Lords in Westminster's crowded palace complex, ideal for storing explosives. Robert Catesby consulted Jesuit Henry Garnet on the morality of destroying innocents. Garnet dissuaded him but was bound by confessional secrecy and warned Rome of potential rebellion. By July, 36 barrels of gunpowder were amassed, sourced illicitly, though some decayed and was replaced. Plague delayed Parliament's opening to November 5th. Guy Fawkes briefly left England. Late 1605 recruits included Catholic horseman Ambrose Rookwood, Knight Everard Digby, who rented Cotton Court and pledged funds, and wealthy Francis Tresham, Catesby's cousin, who joined reluctantly on October 14th, providing £100 but expressing soul-damning fears. In October 1605, the Gunpowder Plot conspirators finalized details in London and Daventry taverns. Guy Fawkes would ignite the fuse under Parliament and flee across the Thames, while a Midlands revolt captured Princess Elizabeth. Fawkes planned to inform European Catholics afterward. Concerns arose among conspirators' wives and Anne Vaux about Catholic safety in Parliament. They debated warning figures like Lords Northumberland, Arundel, Vaux, Montague, Monteagle, Stourton, and Mordaunt. On October 26th, an anonymous letter warned Lord Monteagle to avoid Parliament, hinting at a terrible blow. He delivered it to Secretary Cecil, Earl of Salisbury, who informed select earls but delayed telling King James, who was hunting. Monteagle's servant tipped off conspirator Catesby via the Wright brothers. Suspecting Tresham, Catesby confronted him. Tresham denied it but urged abandoning the plot. Cecil, already sensing unrest, waited to observe developments. Summary of Gunpowder Plot discovery. On November 1st, 1605, King James I read the Monteagle letter, suspecting an explosive plot akin to his father's 1567 death. Salisbury feigned ignorance, allowing the king credit. The Privy Council planned a search of Parliament for November 4th. Plotters prepared. Percy reassured allies, Catesby headed to Midlands, Fawkes received a watch for timing, Digby readied to abduct Princess Elizabeth. On November 4th, searchers found firewood in the Undercroft, guarded by Fawkes, posing as servant, linked to Percy, a known agitator. A second nighttime search by Thomas Knivet arrested Fawkes, dressed for flight, with matches, watch, and lantern. They uncovered 36 barrels of gunpowder hidden beneath. Fawkes, alias John Johnson, was presented to the king on November 5th. Following the arrest of John Johnson, Guy Fawkes, Gunpowder Plot conspirators fled northwest along Watling Street. Christopher Wright and Thomas Percy departed together, followed by Ambrose Rookwood, who overtook others including Keyes, Wright, Percy, Catesby, John Wright, and Bates. They reunited and headed to Dunchurch using Digby's horses, while Keyes went to Mordaunt's house. Thomas Wintour lingered in London, checked Westminster, then fled to his sisters at Norbrook and on to Huntington Court. The group paused at Ashby St. Ledgers to brief Robert Wintour, then met Digby at Dunchurch. Catesby falsely claimed the king and Salisbury were dead, rallying for armed resistance before moving to Warwick. In London, authorities heightened security, issued Percy's arrest warrant, and confined the Earl of Northumberland. Fawkes, interrogated, admitted his intent to destroy king and parliament, but claimed to act alone, earning the king's admiration for his Roman resolution. On November 6th, Lord Chief Justice Sir John Popham, known for his anti-Catholic bias, interrogated Ambrose Rookwood's servants, uncovering the names of Gunpowder Plot conspirators: Robert Catesby, Rookwood, James Keyes, Thomas Winter, John and Christopher Wright, and John Grant. Meanwhile, the captured Johnson, Guy Fawkes, stuck to his alias and was transferred to the Tower of London with the seized gunpowder. King James I authorized torture, illegal except by royal decree, instructing officials to begin with milder methods and escalate as needed. Johnson endured severe torments, likely including manacles, wall hanging, and the rack. His resistance crumbled on November 7th, leading to confessions that day and over the next two. On November 6, 1605, Gunpowder Plot fugitives, including Catesby, raided Warwick Castle for supplies, collected weapons at Norbrook, and proceeded to Huntington via Cotton Court. They sought aid from priests like Garnet, who urged them to stop and fled. Several priests were later captured. Receiving no support from family or allies, the group reached Holbeche House in Staffordshire. Desperate, they dried soaked gunpowder by a fire, sparking an explosion that injured Catesby, Rookwood, Grant, and Morgan. Some, like Digby and the Wintours, fled. On November 8th, Sheriff Richard Walsh's 200 men besieged the house. In the shootout, Thomas Wintour was wounded, the Wright brothers and Rookwood shot, and Catesby and Percy killed by a single bullet. Survivors Grant, Morgan, Rookwood, and Wintour were arrested. Following the Gunpowder Plot's failure, conspirators Bates, Keyes, and Digby were captured, with Tresham arrested on November 12th and imprisoned in the Tower alongside Montague, Mordaunt, Stourton, and the Earl of Northumberland. The government intensified Catholic persecution. Anne Vaux's home revealed hidden passages and Garnet's presence. Elizabeth Vaux was interrogated but denied knowledge of priest John Gerard. Conspirators' homes were looted, leaving families like Mary Digby's destitute. Garnet fled to Hindlip Hall, protesting innocence. The plot's foiling sparked national relief, boosting parliamentary loyalty and securing high subsidies for King James. Walter Raleigh denied involvement. A sermon at St. Paul's condemned the plot, while James's November 9th speech emphasized divine kingship and distinguished plotters from all Catholics, crediting his survival to a miracle. Foreign powers disavowed the conspirators as atheists and heretics. Sir Edward Coke oversaw interrogations of Gunpowder Plot suspects in the Tower of London's lieutenants' lodgings over 10 weeks. Threats of torture often prompted confessions, though evidence of actual torture is lacking. Key published confessions included Guy Fawkes's on November 8 and Thomas Wintour's on November 23, providing vital details. Wintour's signature suggested possible government influence or injury effects. Henry Percy, Earl of Northumberland, faced suspicion due to ties with plotter Thomas Percy and was imprisoned until 1621, fined £30,000 and stripped of offices. Lords Mordaunt and Stourton were fined and jailed until 1608. Others questioned but released included Northumberland's brothers, Lord Montague, Agnes Wenman, and Dudley Carleton, despite connections to conspirators. Thomas Bates confessed on December 4, 1605, implicating Jesuit priests like Tessamond and Garnet in the Gunpowder Plot, detailing meetings and escapes. Francis Tresham died on December 23 from illness, retracting some statements about Garnet but omitting the Monteagle letter. He was attainted posthumously, his head displayed publicly. A January 15th proclamation sought Garnet, Gerard, and Tessamond, Greenway. The latter two fled abroad. Robert Wintour and Stephen Littleton were captured on January 9th at Hagley, betrayed by a suspicious cook. At Hindlip Hall, searches from January 20th yielded Jesuit lay brothers Owen and Ashley on January 24th. Humphrey Littleton, captured after escaping, betrayed Garnet's location on January 26th to save himself. Garnet and Edward Oldcorn emerged from hiding the next day, exhausted. On the day Henry Garnet was captured, the surviving Gunpowder Plot conspirators were arraigned in Westminster Hall. Prisoners, including Fawkes and others, were tried before lords and justices, with King James secretly observing. Speaker Edward Phillips and Attorney General Edward Coke delivered speeches denouncing the plot as Jesuit-led treason, blaming priests like Garnet and absolving foreign powers. Coke vividly described the intended executions: drawing, emasculation, disembowelment, and quartering. Prisoners offered pleas. Most were found guilty of high treason. Digby admitted guilt, citing broken promises to Catholics. Garnet endured 23 interrogations, resisting torture and forgery. He confessed under duress to learning of the plot via confession. Tried separately at Guildhall, he was convicted and sentenced to death despite denials. Summary of Gunpowder Plot executions. Following the failed Gunpowder Plot, conspirators faced brutal executions. Catesby and Percy, killed earlier, were exhumed, decapitated, and their heads displayed outside the House of Lords. On January 30, 1606, Everard Digby, Robert Wintour, John Grant, and Thomas Bates were dragged to St. Paul's churchyard. Digby sought forgiveness, rejected a Protestant minister, and was hanged, castrated, disemboweled, and quartered while conscious, as were the others. The next day, Thomas Wintour, Ambrose Rookwood, Robert Keyes, and Guy Fawkes were executed at Westminster's Old Palace Yard. Keyes jumped from the gallows but survived briefly. Fawkes broke his neck by jumping, avoiding further torment. Stephen Littleton was executed in Stafford. Humphrey Littleton was executed in Worcester despite cooperating. Jesuit priest Henry Garnet was hanged on May 3, 1606. Summary of Gunpowder Plot aftermath. Following the 1605 Gunpowder Plot's exposure, Parliament enacted stricter anti-Catholic laws in 1606, reviving Elizabethan fines, restrictions, a sacramental test, and an oath of allegiance denouncing papal authority to depose rulers. Catholic emancipation delayed 200 years, yet James I's reign offered relative leniency, with loyal Catholics in high office. The plot influenced literature. Shakespeare's Macbeth, 1603-1607, echoed its themes, including equivocation and demonic elements, amid heightened interest in the supernatural, as in James's Demonology, 1599. Poets like Milton condemned it as unprecedented evil in works like In Quintum Novembris, 1626, and epigrams possibly inspiring Paradise Lost. Historian Ronald Hutton posits that a successful plot would spark anti-Catholic backlash, that rebellion is unlikely without foreign aid, and that it could potentially make England a Puritan absolute monarchy rather than pursuing parliamentary reforms. Summary of Gunpowder Plot conspiracy theories. Following the 1605 Gunpowder Plot, many suspected Robert Cecil, Earl of Salisbury, of orchestrating or permitting it to favor King James I and push anti-Catholic laws. Theories claimed he invented the plot or ignored infiltrated agents for propaganda. The 1678 Popish plot revived scrutiny, prompting Bishop Thomas Barlow's book refuting Cecil's involvement as a contrivance. In 1897, John Gerard accused Salisbury in What Was the Gunpowder Plot? But historian Samuel Gardner countered, deeming him merely opportunistic. Later efforts, like Francis Edwards' 1969 Guy Fawkes' The Real Story, failed due to insufficient evidence. Post 1678, Parliament's cellars, previously leased privately, were searched annually before state openings, a tradition enduring today for security. Summary of Guy Fawkes' night traditions. In January 1606, following the Gunpowder Plot, the observance of the 5th of November Act 1605 mandated annual commemorative services in England, lasting until 1859. Celebrations began soon after with church bells, bonfires, and fireworks, evolving into Britain's Bonfire Night, Fireworks Night, or Guy Fawkes Night. Nationwide events feature firework displays and bonfires. Traditionally, children crafted guys, effigies of plotter Guy Fawkes from stuffed old clothes and masks, to burn and collect funds for fireworks, though this has declined. The term guy later meant an oddly dressed person, then any male. In pre-revolutionary American colonies, Guy Fawkes Day was popular. Boston's Pope Night often turned anti-authoritarian and dangerously rowdy, confining many indoors. In the 2005 ITV program, The Gunpowder Plot Exploding the Legend, a full-size replica of the House of Lords was destroyed using 1 ton of gunpowder at the Spade Atom test site. The experiment showed that a well-preserved explosion would have obliterated the building, killing everyone inside. The 7-foot concrete walls, mimicking historical construction, were reduced to rubble, with debris scattering far. King James's dummy head was found distant from its throne. No one within 330 feet could survive. Westminster Abbey's stained glass would shatter, and the blast would be visible and audible for miles. Even half the gunpowder would instantly kill all in the Lords. The show debunked claims of deteriorated powder failing. Low-quality samples still exploded powerfully, amplified by barrel containment, creating a cannon-like effect. Fawkes, a gunpowder expert, used twice the required amount. David Cressy's Bonfires and Bells, 1989, explores how the Protestant calendar in Elizabethan and Stuart England fostered national identity and collective memory through commemorative rituals. Focusing on events like the defeat of the Spanish Armada, the Gunpowder Plot, Guy Fawkes Night, and the accession of Queen Elizabeth, Cressy examines bonfires, bell-ringing, sermons, and processions as tools for reinforcing Protestant values, anti-Catholic sentiment, and loyalty to the monarchy. Drawing on diaries, parish records, and sermons, he reveals how these annual observances evolved amid political changes, from Tudor reforms to the Civil War, blending religious fervor with patriotic fervor. The book highlights the calendar's role in shaping English cultural memory, though participation varied by region and class. A key text in social history, it underscores ritual's power in nation-building. Thus, James I's ascension marked a new chapter, easing religious tensions and ushering in the Stuart dynasty with promises of stability and Protestant continuity.
Thank you for watching this AGNDD intelliReport, dear viewers. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell button to get notified during new uploads. And make sure to tune in next time. Stay safe and healthy. Cheers.